Well, we've seen it. Another one of the most unlikely things to happen in our lifetimes just happened last night as the Maple Leafs have actually won a second playoff series in our lifespan. Everyone celebrate! I have nothing to celebrate with. Welcome back to the O Hockey Show, and today we're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Ottawa Senators series, and that ended just last night, where the Leafs secured the 4-2 win, and they are moving on to face one of the toughest teams in the NHL. But first, let's talk about this team and break down this series. So let's give some credit where it's due in the MVPs of this series, starting with the losing team, the defeated Ottawa Senators. Now, there was some I would say some decent standout performances by the team altogether, but some guys like Tim Stützle just couldn't get offensive things going. He had his chances, he showed his freaking jets and his skating ability and his drive. Like, I know everyone makes fun of him for being a diver, and he has his criticisms, right? But I would say offensively, he was right there. If he could have just broke through a couple times, this series is completely different. But the guy that stands out overall is Brady Tkachuk, of course. Brady, 7 points, which is not bad. Top point maker for the Maple Leafs was Nylander with 9 points. So 7 points for the Ottawa Senators. Ended up being a +2. 30 hits in this series, which was 6th in the NHL currently, and 22 shots, which I don't know if people really think about like how great shots are, but if you're getting shots on net, you're participating in the game. You're getting things going for your team. You're trying, right? Think about some other players, right? Robert Thomas, take for example. He, of course, the story, 32 points to finish up the season after Four Nations face-off, leading the NHL in points ever since that tournament, and he has I think 7 or 8 shots in this series, in the playoffs so far, right? 8 shots, which he has scored on 2 of them, so his shooting percentage is 42%, which is ridiculous. But Brady had freaking 22 shots in this series. He is kicking hard. So Brady, he had a great standout performance, but, it is what it is. The Senators are knocked out, and it was a good series for them. Batherson looked good. Once again, another guy that just couldn't really get some points on the board. Pinto, same thing. But overall, this series, going towards the Maple Leafs, I gotta say their MVP was Anthony Stolarz. I think he stole the show a lot of times for the Maple Leafs. Anyone can say what they want. You can comment how stupid I am down below, but I don't think the Maple Leafs defense looks that incredible. Everyone's always saying, oh, underrated Maple Leafs defense, underrated, and everyone thinks they're horrible. Everyone thinks that the Maple Leafs defense is something trash, and they're all wrong. And I'm not saying their defense is the worst thing in the world, but I think Anthony Stolarz is the reason they won this series, hands down. I think offensively, the core 5, of course, they did produce. That's the question mark. Do they produce? They definitely did. Nylander with 9 points. Matthews had, I think, 6, 7, something like that. Marner had 7 points, I think exactly. Or, no, he might have had 8, something like that. Regardless, the guy's showing up to play. Nyes had a few good power play goals. He was out there performing pretty solid work, right? And Tavares, same deal. So, overall, offense, they did their job, but it wasn't standoutish to me, and no one defensively did anything stand out. I think the Maple Leafs, the MVP, was Anthony Stolarz. I think a lot of games the Maple Leafs did not show up to play in, and Stolarz kept them in it. So let's talk about that. So for the Senators, they were close. They made this series close. They actually made all the Maple Leafs fans getting all scared about what could happen. And they should have been. And they should have been scared originally, right? 3 of these games 2 to 4, all went to overtime. And the Maple Leafs won the first 2 of them, and then the Senators, of course, won Game 4. Winning that one in overtime. But by that point, it was 3-0, right? Could you think if Tim Stützle could have changed things around and gotten a couple goals in this series? Batherson, Pinto, Giroux, right? Or Tkachuk, or Shabbat could have blasted one from the point at one point, right? I think the Senators, they lost 2 overtimes. If they win one of those, currently this series is sitting at 3-3. This could be going to a Game 7 tomorrow night. But instead, we're here, right? The Senators came close, but it was, I think, the biggest liability on this team, and I'm not saying anything new, is Linus Ullmark. He was If a goaltender, the best could be a brick wall, this guy was a freaking wall. Like, he just was one of those things in Mario that just slammed to the ground. Like, that is what he was. There was no wall. They just kept shooting and shooting and shooting. And that's kind of where my point for the Maple Leafs come from, right? And scoring and scoring and scoring. I didn't finish that analogy. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, they won a series that immediately from game one, the second that first period started, felt like a walk-off series. It felt like they should have just walked on through, right? And, of course, every series, some of them are close. You know, some of them look closer than they are and whatever. But, to me, this series should have been the Maple Leafs. And let me ask you this. Comment below. Do you think the Maple Leafs looked that impressive to you? Especially in the two closeout games, right? Especially in the first two games of the series. Do you think that in the wins the Maple Leafs came out with in this series looked dominating or great performances? I don't know if I'm convinced. I don't know. Austin Matthews, right, where the scoring comes from, supposedly, in the regular season at least, his 2 goals were nothing special. His second one last night, his second goal of the playoffs, and his, 3rd goal in the last, 15 playoff games he's played or something like that. His goal last night, I could have scored it. And I know that's actually it's probably not true. But Linus Ullmark is just like, I can't see. Let me get out of the net. And then Matthews is like, okay, shoot it. And then he scored, right? It was one of the lamest goals I have ever seen. And to me, it's just like, if Ullmark was so bad, and the Senators were not able to compete very well with the Maple Leafs, where was this dominating team, right? Look at the Florida Panthers, who they're about to play, right? They were easily dominating the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the Lightning looked damn good, too, at times as well, right? They had a close... the Lightning are a dangerous team, and they shut everything down, you know? To me, the Maple Leafs are still scaring me going into the future. Marner, right? Was he extremely impressive? No. Matthew Nyes, I would say, was. Tavares is also pretty decent. But to me, Nylander, sure, he had 9 points, and he had a good series, but Matthews and Marner and Riley, the defense did not look that impressive. Stolars, right? Everyone's writing him flowers, writing him letters saying how great he is. He has a .901 save percentage against a team that didn't look that deadly, right? To me, this is a scary team, scary place for Toronto to still be. I have zero faith in the Toronto Maple Leafs from this series. And I'm waiting. I've been waiting for 9 years or something now for the Maple Leafs to change my mind about things, right? I'm the guy that flipped on the Vegas Golden Knights. I've flipped on all these teams that have waken up and become good. And I was like, you know what? I was wrong. The Toronto Maple Leafs, we've all been waiting to be proven wrong. Everyone, even the fans at this point, I think are waiting to be proven wrong that they're a serious team, right? To me, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they are a unimpressive team in the playoffs, just like Connor Hellebuck is. I think this team, I don't know how far they get. I think the time to throw a parade is now, because this is what they wanted to achieve this year, is to win another playoff series. I don't think, and it does suck that they are in the toughest division, right? It does suck that they are in the weeds, no matter who they play. You could take some other divisions. I mean, you take the Metropolitan. It's the Canes. Well, Canes and Caps look good this year, but I don't know. It's in whatever. That was a bad example. But to me, the Maple Leafs, they finally got that win that they needed. And maybe this kind of win and maybe this kind of team coming up against them is what they needed. They had that little simple series where they didn't have to try that hard against the Ottawa Senators, and maybe that's going to give them some more fuel to the fire, and so the Panthers are waiting to get lit up by them in Toronto, starting, I don't know when the next series is going to start. So that is all I got to say. So I'm going to make a whole video about that series coming up, probably coming out tomorrow. But for me, I got to say, the Ottawa Senators, I like that team. They're one of my favorite Canadian teams. And it was an okay series. They didn't look that good. It was actually not that I really am that invested in the Senators, but it was frustrating to watch at times because it's man, this, come on, Stützle, you're looking good. Score a goal. The Maple Leafs not looking too good. Don't let them score a goal. And then Ullmark would just let a softie in, or the Senators give up one bad play. The Senators, that was one thing, too. That was another thing. It's those random bad plays where Matthew Nyes gets his breakaway that everyone sees around the world now, right? It felt like Anthony Stolars had those kind of bad, when the Leafs would have a bad break, he would be there to cover it. Ullmark, He was nowhere to be found in any of those kind of game-changing saves. So to me, this series could have been closer. Of course, now it ends and it's not at all. But yeah, we'll see what happens going forward. But the Maple Leafs, for now, they've won, and I guess that's shocking to say. So that is all I got to say. And I was wrong about this series. I said Senators, I think, in 6. So I was wrong, I got to admit. But anyways, that's all I got to say. So if you made it this far, please, I'm begging you to please subscribe. And until next time, too sweet, I hope you have an amazing day. And ta-ta for now.